Eagles Entertainment.
The journey to the draft is driven by AAA. AAA Roadside is their strong side. Make AAA a part of your game day today. AAA, go ahead.
With the 25th pick in the NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
You're listening to the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA.
Welcome to the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. I'm your host, Fran Duffy. We've got a fun show for you here today because this week we're not going to do our normal Saturday scouting and scout stories and mailbag or even our infamous On the Clock segment. No, instead, we're going to do our first live mock draft. And so it's going to be myself, Ben Fennell, Dane Brugler. We're going to welcome in our good friend Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus. The four of us are going to go around the horn. We're going to cover all 32 teams. So even if your team does not have a first-round pick, we will talk about some players that have a fit. A couple of different ground rules here real quick. We just kind of split the teams up evenly and, just kind of did it a little bit randomly here. But all teams are covered, number one. And number two, all these guys are picking with what they think the teams would do, not what we would do. So we were trying to keep that in mind when we made these selections. And also, we're doing this truly live. We did not do it beforehand and then roll out our picks. So enjoy as we all kind of scoff at each other's selections and wish that so-and-so had fallen to us later in the draft. But we will cover all 32 teams. We're going to get into it right now for the start of this mock. All right, guys, let's just jump right in here as I welcome in Ben Fennell, Dane Brugler, Mike Renner. Guys, excited for it. Dane, Ben, welcome back. Mike, you've been on before numerous times, but excited to bring you in here as we jump into a mock draft, our first live mock draft here for the 2020 football season.
Well, thanks for having me on, fellas. I see I get the Eagles here, which I'm pretty excited about.
Well, we figured we'd let you, since you're the guest here, we'll let you make the pick for us. But I'll kick things off. And as I said at the top of the show, all of us have 8 teams that we were given. We'll cover all 32 teams here in this mock draft. And I drew the fortune of picking the New York Jets. And look, this one's cut and dry, guys. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence here. I don't think that this is really a difficult pick for Joe Douglas and for the New York Jets. Go with the best player in this draft. Go with Trevor Lawrence. Certainly, there's no sure thing at the quarterback position, but feel pretty good about Lawrence's ability to both transition to the NFL and handle the spotlight of playing in New York City. So I will give it to Trevor Lawrence, number 1, to the New York Jets.
And number 2, I guess, is on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know how much room we're leaving for comments or analysis, Fran. You just want to keep moving to the next pick.
Yeah, let's just jump right in. If you guys listen, we're going like Wild West. So if you guys jump in on it, if you guys feel the need to jump in on anything, do it. Otherwise, we'll keep it moving here.
All right. Well, too, Jacksonville Jaguars could have a new regime in here by the time the spring hits. Right now, Doug Marrone and Jay Gruden man in the offense. But it's no secret we need a quarterback. We've had Gardner Minshew, Jake Luton, Mike Glennon start games. I'm going to go with BYU's Zach Wilson. I think his trajectory is trending up to be the second quarterback off the board. First and foremost, his ability to be accurate consistently at every level of the defense, within structure, without a structure, and just the loose playmaking ability. From inside the pocket, the arm angles, the ability to run improvisationally and get out of the pocket and scramble for some yards as well. You got to be able to create on your own in the NFL. You don't have these great picture systems anymore. You have to be able to get yourself out of trouble and create when things aren't there. So I think Zach Wilson would be a great face of the franchise and a playmaker for the Jags.
Chanticleer's game doesn't worry you there?
Haven't gotten to that tape quite yet, but interested to dig in to see if they did anything schematically to maybe tie one of his hands behind his back.
No.
How close was this for you, Ben, between Wilson and the other quarterbacks?
It's incredibly close. And, looking down the pipe here, a couple other picks, scheme base is going to be very, a big determinant on who the Jags are going to go with. So I'm not sure if maybe Jay Gruden is retained as the offensive coordinator for 2021 or if it's a completely new regime after the season. But I think running that definitely determine the style, which Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, definitely different traits and style of quarterbacking.
All right, I got the Bengals. I think this one's pretty easy. I'm going to go Oregon OT, Penei Sewell. What they did to not protect Joe Burrow was borderline criminal at the start of his career. Obviously, it backfired on them with him blowing out his knee. Have to address that. You already have a left tackle, but I think it's a problem that to have 2 of those is a problem I'd like to have on the Bengals.
Was there any thought about going anywhere else, or is it like slam dunk, definitely Penei Sewell in your mind?
No, it's definitely Penei Sewell in my mind. Just what I'm sad we didn't get to see him this year because the fact that he was so young is, I think, the impressive thing. The guy was 18 years old at the start of last season. You just don't see 18-year-olds playing that well at offensive tackle. I don't know where his trajectory ends up, but I just think that's he's a rare breed of OT. And I wouldn't pass on that if I'm the Bengals.
So the LA Chargers, I've got 4th overall, and they would have loved Penei Sewell in this situation for the same reason, to try and protect their franchise quarterback here in Justin Herbert. That being said, look, there are a couple options here that I'd be thinking about. I think you look at the receiver position, certainly try and give give themselves a few more weapons there on the offensive side. Kyle Pitts, certainly an option there. Hunter Henry playing on the franchise tag right now. He's set to hit the free agent market again. But this team needs corners. And I think when you look at the cornerback market in this draft right now, as we sit here today in early December, really there's 2 names, right? You look at Patrick Surtain Jr. From Alabama. You look at Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. As long as that, with what we know now for this defensive scheme with LA, I think you look at Gus Bradley, you look at the size, the length they prioritize, the type of guys that typically have that level of success in that scheme. I'm going to go Caleb Farley here and kind of surprise a little bit and say that Caleb Farley is the first corner off the board just because of that potential scheme fit there with Gus Bradley in LA. I'm going to make Farley the 4th overall pick in this draft.
I like it. And you actually took who I was going to take for the Cowboys here at number 5. And it's a similar conversation with the Cowboys. And it's really interesting because when you look at it with the Cowboys, same conversation. If Sewell's there, I think it's done. The Cowboys are not going to pass on Penei Sewell. They're going to try and trade back, but of course we're not doing trades in this scenario. So what do? They need to go defense, and I don't know that any of the pass rushers are. Maybe you think about it, but I don't know if they get you too excited. Maybe a Micah Parsons you think about, but same type of deal. They need corner help. I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain with Caleb Farley off the board. Patrick Surtain, I don't know that he's absolutely one of the top 5 players in this draft, but for the Cowboys sitting here at number 5, I think it makes the most sense. Their cornerback depth chart, a lot of uncertainty going into the offseason. Owusu-Koromoah, Brown, Jordan Lewis, they're all free agents. Why not, reconnect him and Trevon Diggs in Dallas? I think that works.
They just got to hope they don't play the 2018 or 2019 LSU offense then.
Yeah, digging back into the Alabama well, we know they feel comfortable taking, DBs from that school after taking Diggs last year.
That's right. And I think when you look at what they like with length and, there's some Byron Jones to Surtain. You see that a little bit. So I think he's a player that's going to be high on their board.
All right. I got Philly, and you guys made this one easy for me, I believe. I'm going to go Penn State linebacker, Micah Parsons. I think it's obviously high for a linebacker, but I think he's that good, and I don't need to tell you guys about the need at linebacker for Philadelphia.
Interesting. So was there any thought, Mike, on any of the receivers, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, or were you just kind of sitting there waiting like, all right, it's going to be Micah Parsons here?
Yeah, I'd love to go wide receiver at some point if I'm Philadelphia. I'd love to add to that group, but I think the difference between Jamar Chase and maybe who can get the top of the second round in Philadelphia compared to Micah Parsons at linebacker and who you can get the top of the second round linebacker. And it's a good linebacker class, but I just think Micah Parsons, he's that 3 down, whatever you ask him to do, can do. Blitz, coverage, play the run. Another guy who, like I said about Penei Sewell, sad you didn't get to see him this year because I think he's just special in terms of what he brings to the table athletically.
We have an idea of what Mike's trending towards here. He's got 2 picks and 2 opt-out players so far for Mike Renner. Ben, you've got 7. You've got the Carolina Panthers.
Well, the Carolina Panthers here with the new regime, Matt Rule, and offense coordinator Joe Brady. I don't particularly love the fit of Justin Fields here coming from Ohio State. I think Joe Brady wants a quick processor, quick decision maker, someone who's very accurate and mobile. I don't know if that's Justin Fields. My main issue with him is his decision making and ability to process and get rid of that ball on time, which I'm just not sure fits the Carolina Panthers. But we need a quarterback of the future here. I'm going to go with Justin Fields. I think he's too good to pass up at 6'3", 225. Might need a little bit of a stylistic change. Does a lot of stuff from under center in that Ohio State offense. Maybe a little bit more of a point and shoot in Joe Brady's system here. But he's a really intriguing talent. And if you need a quarterback and don't have one, you better go get one. So it's a 7th overall pick here. I think that's good value.
And Ben, my counterpoint to that would be, I think Matt Rule is really going to like Fields. When you talk about leadership, you talk about the confidence, the cool that he plays with. I think Rule is really going to like that. And with Joe Brady, I mean, I don't know that you can really plan on him being there for the long haul. And so I don't know that I'm necessarily drafting a quarterback that fits Joe Brady to a T, just because there's a good chance. I mean, even this offseason, we're going to hear his name connected to jobs. So that would be my counterpoint to that. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right about the fit with Fields and Brady.
All right. Well, 8th pick overall, we got the Atlanta Falcons. Mike, we're back to you.
All right, I'm back on the clock here. This one, I would love. I mean, getting a third wide receiver to go with those guys would be kind of incredible. But I think I'm going to go to defensive line. Been the bane of their existence for Atlanta on the edge ever since Vic Beasley fell off a cliff. I'm going to go Kwity Paye from Michigan.
Ooh.
I think the tools, what he's put together so far this season, I think the trajectory only pointing up with him. Obviously, the freak of Bruce Feldman's number one freaks lists. If he does run a 6.373 cone, I will poop my pants. I doubt that's real, but he really is a monster, even just watching the tape.
And one of a handful of teams there in Atlanta that they've got a scheme change, not just a scheme change, but a regime change as well in the front office. So tough to kind of peg exactly what they're looking for. But the addition of Paye certainly makes sense to kind of fight against the ghosts of drafts past there for Atlanta. Any other thoughts on there before we move to number 9, guys?
I was just worried that Mike was going to take Jamar Chase there, because that's who I'm taking at number 9. Listen, that's for Miami sitting there. They need more playmakers. I don't think wide receivers necessarily stands out as a huge need. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Jakeem Grant, they had a few opt-outs, Alan Hearns, guys like that, Albert Wilson. But, they're looking for playmakers, guys that they can pair with Tua and Jamar Chase. I mean, I'm just thrilled to see him still available here. To steal one of your notes, Fran, he plays like a smaller Larry Fitzgerald, very natural with his route movements. Does a great job of the separation, that gear changing acceleration that he has. And he's an elite finisher, physical ball skills, the competitive toughness is off the charts. So I'm plugging him in with Tua, and I'm feeling great about what I've got cooking in Miami.
And was there any thought, like at all, of it being Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, any of these other guys? Or is it like, because you're starting to see in mock drafts, Dane, like, those guys start to take over there in terms of Chase, and it might just be like an out of sight, out of mind thing. But right. Do you foresee any scenario where Chase is not the first receiver off the board?
If we're talking about Miami, you can't rule it out. For a team looking to recreate that Tua to his former teammates magic, just recreating that Alabama connection. You can't rule that out. But I mean, Chase, watching him last year, I don't know how he's not the top receiver. And I love Devontae Smith. I think Jalen Waddle is, one of the most explosive playmakers we've seen the last 3 or 4 years enter the draft.
All right, well, we're going to the 10th pick here. Denver Broncos. Ben, you are up on the clock with Denver.
Yeah, a couple of directions to go here. I think they have enough playmakers on offense. I'm thinking offensive line. Do we want to, maybe upgrade Garrett Bowles? We need the future of the right tackle position. The other side, we need to get younger and more talented at the cornerback position as well. I think there's more offensive tackle depth. We're going to get that later. But a guy that looked pretty good for the Denver Broncos there at corner, Aqib Talib, is a guy that reminds me of that Dane threw out, and that's J.C. Horn at South Carolina. A big, long press corner at 6'1", 200 pounds. He's a little grabby. He's a little physical, but I think that plays to his advantage. Is going to fit right in with a nice press corner pedigree with the Denver Broncos. Need to get younger on the outside. Need to get faster. Need to get tougher. Need to get more turnovers. I think that's what J.C. Horn's going to bring to you.
Interesting. I'm not going to be out, or I'm not going to lie here. I was expecting you to go a different direction, and so I had a pick earmarked here for the Washington football team. And look, when you look at what they've done in the draft over the last couple of years, there has been a definite trend towards Power 5 talent. So guys from big schools, Ohio State, Alabama, I think Virginia Tech. They've dipped into a lot of the big Power 5 schools. Age certainly matters. They definitely prefer younger guys. And the other thing that really stands out to me, just looking at their draft history over the last couple of years, they're putting a big priority on guys that produce, whether it's over the course of their career. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Cole Holcomb, Jimmy Moreland, Jordan Brailford, all these guys produced at a very high number. Antonio Gandy-Golden. Then there are guys that just posted like elite production over the course of 1 year. You look at Bryce Love, Antonio Gibson. So, guys, I'm going to go a little shocking here because I feel like everybody will say, oh, well, quarterback makes a lot of sense. And Trey Lance certainly does. But I think they really have put a big priority on the bigger schools. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith. They just continue to keep scooping up these Alabama players. They need receiving help. I think you look at the production that he has done over the course of his career. He checks a lot of boxes for the Washington football team. So I'm going to let Trey Lance slide, and I'm going to go here with Devontae Smith and take him off the board.
Wow, that's him and McLaurin would be fun. That would be a fun combo. Two smallish receivers who are just good luck covering those two guys. That regardless of who's at quarterback, that sign me up for that. I was actually surprised. I thought you might go Pitts and give him a little more size in Washington because they're missing size at pass catcher. But I like that fit.
I thought for sure you'd find the left tackle of the future. They need a couple things on an offensive side.
And Pitts checks a lot of the boxes. There were a few guys that I was like, oh, I think this could be it. But Devontae Smith just checks like way too many boxes. Like they are just scooping up Alabama players left and right. Waiver wire, free agency, trades, and then obviously through the draft. I'm going to keep the trend going with Devontae Smith.
All right. Well, we're still on Trey Lance watch then. When you talk about Washington, Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco coming up here right in a row. So with the Lions, we don't know what's going to happen with the front office, with the coaching staff. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that means that we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. But, we saw Matthew Stafford on Sunday. This guy can still play. And with the Lions wide receiver depth chart about to be wiped out this offseason, unless they use franchise tag or re-sign some of these guys, they're going to need to replenish wide receiver depth chart. So let's throw Jalen Waddle in there. He's the third wide receiver off the board in this scenario. He is obviously out right now because he's hurt, but he's just an instant playmaker. And I think he showed this year that he's more than just an athlete. He can win at all three levels. There is some nuance to what he's doing out there, and he's not just trying to beat everybody with speed. Jalen Waddle, I think, would be a fun weapon to throw there in Detroit.
Dane, Waddle or Ruggs coming up? Who would you rather have had?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I have a little more belief in Waddle I think I've seen more from him at the college level in terms of being a more complete receiver, which I didn't think I would just watching these guys over the summer. But in the 4 or 5 games that we saw Waddle this year, he really sold me. So I think I would lean Waddle, which I'm not sure I would have said that over the summer.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. And he outproduced Smith when they were all both healthy. It was Waddle.
Yeah.
But played right into my hands here, Chicago. Trey Lance, fall or whatever, ends here.
Yep.
They're desperate, probably going to be a new coach, new front office, hit reset, get a QB to develop there. I think it's going to be Trey Lance.
So the J.C. Horn pick from a couple of picks ago really kind of threw me for a loop because I really had him earmarked here for the San Francisco 49ers. They want tough, competitive guys. J.C. Horn checks that box. John Lynch, I know he loves guys with NFL bloodlines. Yeah, check that box. They've got no corners under contract for 2021. Check that box. But, man, I just don't know if I feel great about any of the corners that are left fitting the scheme that's there in San Francisco. I just don't know if I love the fit there. So I'm going to go away from that. I think I'm going to go to the edge. I think I'm going to go to give them another pass rusher. Obviously, you lose DeForest Buckner last year. You supplement that by drafting Javon Kinlaw. Nick Bosa is there, obviously, and Dee Ford is there, but I feel like they like him more in kind of a situational role. I think I'm going to go Greg Rousseau here and give them a young guy to kind of put on the other side of Nick Bosa, really kind of beef up that defensive line. They prefer guys that have that athletic background. They don't mind guys with small sample sizes. If you look at the drafts under John Lynch, they've taken a lot of one-year starters, guys that maybe haven't put a ton of tape out there, but that if the tape is good, they will jump at it. I'm going to jump here on Greg Rousseau to play opposite Bosa with T Ford there already in tow. I'm going to go with Greg Rousseau to the San Francisco 49ers.
I like it. This is my way of stalling because that's who I was going to take next. I think he would have been a great fit in Arizona. Arizona's next, and Rousseau, maybe he's got that length that Chandler Jones has, and they'd love to add another guy like that. So because Arizona, they need pass rush help. I think they haven't had much since Chandler Jones went out. So the question here becomes, okay, do you go with your next best pass rusher, which, comes down to who do you like between Owe or, Joseph Osai or Ojulari or, are any of those edge prospects good enough here? Or are we going to plan B, which could be somewhere else, which, are we going to let Kyle Pitts fall this far?
Yeah.
I don't know. Arizona, they don't need necessarily more offense, but I don't know. Give me Kyle Pitts here. He could be your big receiver. He could be your tight end. He's not a bum as a blocker, but that's not why you're drafting him. You're drafting him because he's a playmaker as a tight end. And, if he can grow to be Darren Waller, well, shoot, that Arizona offense, good luck covering all those guys. Give Kyler another weapon and let's have fun.
I like it.
Starting a 220-pound tight end right now at Arizona anyway, so
that's a good point. Yeah, they're not afraid of that. I think that'll be an interesting one. As Dane, I know you're on the clock again with New England. I'll give you a second here to stall. I think it's been interesting so far just to see, obviously a couple surprises here with Trey Lance falling outside the top 10, falling to number 13. Greg Rousseau going a little bit later, I think, than some people would have imagined. A lot of talented players still on the board here. Still only one offensive lineman off the board. We've only got two or three. We've got three corners off the board, all going in the top 10. We've got all the big quarterbacks, all the big name quarterbacks so far off the board. We'll see if that changes here. But Dane, I'll let you get things off here as we start towards the 16th pick in the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and I just screwed myself because I was going to take Pitts here for the Patriots. So, and with the Patriots, you're looking at, they need a lot of help on defense at every level. You could see them adding depth on offense. Maybe this is where, Rashawn Slater could come off the board. We've seen, Isaiah Wynn was another one of those, lacked length, but Patriots don't care. They'll take him and play him at tackle, can also play inside. We don't know where Onwenu, his long-term position is going to be, inside or outside. So offensive line's pretty appealing here. Or we could see them maybe go cornerback. Long-term there, not sure what it's going to be. Stephon Gilmore, if he's going to stay there. So what about, let's go Darian Kendrick, who I think is just kind of scratching the surface of what he's going to be. Former 5-star wide receiver who's just, there's three corners off the board so far. Kendrick's the best athlete. The light bulb's illuminating more and more for him as he gets more under his belt. So, I think this is an appropriate place for him in the first round. Patriots get better at cornerback.
I like it. Yeah, and he certainly looked athletic on that defensive touchdown this past week against Virginia Tech. Mike, you're next up here with Baltimore as we start the second half of the first round.
All right, the Ravens, this one might be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to go. They love secondary help. They keep trying to replenish their safety, been an issue ever since Earl Thomas, whatever with him. I'm going to go Trayvon Moehrig at safety, safety.
Nice.
He fits what they like in terms of very physical, 6'2", over 200 pounds, leads college football, leads all safeties and pass breakups this year again. Just really good ball skills for a guy that size and rare movement skills. So I feel like for a guy that size, the safety position.
Like it. All right. Well, I'm the only one of this group that I don't think has studied Trayvon Moehrig. Dane, what do you think? You like Moehrig on the back end of Baltimore's defense?
Yeah, when I was doing my mock, he was right on the edge of, I'd like to get him in here in the first, or so in the top 20, I think it's a little bit earlier than we usually have been seeing him go, but I like it. I mean, I think it's a fit we know how much Baltimore prides themselves on, the defensive backs, especially at safety, and Morrig with his play profile. I think that fits what they need. They want rangy players, guys that can affect both sidelines, that you can, you can have them creep up. You can have them play a little bit of man. So I like the fit there.
All right, Ben, take us here to 18. Our old friend Mike Mayock picking for the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think here for Vegas at number 18?
Well, we're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball here, and I thought Mike was potentially going to snipe my pick here, and we need to get more athletic and more talented down the middle of this defense. So that's linebacker, safety, way too many big plays over the top, struggling to cover tight ends, particularly in the middle of the field. Got to be able to cover the Travis Kelce's for the next, 5-8 years in that division. So I'm going to go after Notre Dame's linebacker safety Jeremiah Owusu-Koromoah, who in my opinion is more of a safety than a linebacker. I'm not one that's going to move him to will linebacker. I want him playing out there in space and matching up against tight ends, turning and running down the seam, great short area quickness and burst in those underneath zones, great contributions in the run game. And at the end of the day, an absolute playmaker and a ball hawk, which that Raiders defense absolutely needs. Not enough big plays being made. And I think, some picks there. Took safety Jonathan Abram, 2 years ago in the first round as well. I think there's a little bit to be desired with his play on the field. He makes some big plays when he can thump some guys, but his coverage instincts and instincts on the back end need to be improved.
Mayock's going to love Owusu-Koromoah. The Notre Dame connection, the fact that they're looking for playmakers on defense, the explosiveness. I love that fit there with the Notre Dame linebacker in Las Vegas.
So I love connecting the dots. I think that Jeremiah Owusu-Koromoah connection connects a lot of dots there. And I'll take us next with the New York Giants picking at 19 overall. To me, you look at Dave Gettleman and the way that he's drafted. Age certainly matters. They like younger players, especially 22 and younger. No real medical red flags for the most part. No character red flags. I know DeAndre Baker, that was kind of an outlier for Dave Gettleman. No real toughness red flags. They love height, weight, speed guys. They like size. They like guys with straight line speed. To me, I look at this group and I say, all right, who are the needs for this Giants football team? They need receiver help. I think especially guys with size. So Rashad Bateman, to me, makes a lot of sense here. You look along the offensive line. We know he loves his hog mollies. Who are the guys that kind of fit that profile? I think Landon Dickerson makes some sense here from Alabama. I'm not going to go along the O-line. You look at what they need pass rush help. I think Boogie Basham makes a ton of, to me, was one of the runner-ups for me for Dave Gettleman here as a big guy that's got some versatility. He fits that defense, I think, coming off the edge. I'm not going to go Boogie Basham. Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa, I think he really fits that defensive scheme because of his versatility. He can wear a lot of hats there for Patrick Graham. I think he perfectly fits there. That being said, I think from a personnel standpoint, the biggest need for this New York Giants football team, outside corner. They were able to pick up Isaac Yiadom from Denver. They picked him up off waivers. He's been starting there, but they put a lot of draft capital into that position over the last couple of years for a reason. I think when you look at this defensive staff here in New York, you get some guys on the outside here with some size, some toughness. They've certainly prioritized that under Joe Judge. Where did Joe Judge work? He worked at Alabama with Nick Saban, a guy that he was on that same staff with, Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart, now the head coach at Georgia. That's where they plucked their first-round pick last year in Andrew Thomas. They're going to go back to the Bulldog well this year. They're going to go to Tyson Campbell, the big corner from Georgia. That's the pick there for the New York Giants.
Year before that, too, DeAndre Baker.
That's a good point. Exactly right.
I love the twists and turns there. Just remind, if I ever need directions, I'm not calling you.
I never knew what position he was going to stop on.
Yeah.
Well, look, I know that I've got to buy time so you guys can, figure out who else you like for your next team. So I'm trying to take us on a little bit of a journey here on the Journey of the Draft podcast. Mike,
Much
you're up next.
appreciated.
Exactly right. Mike, you're up next here with the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, Minnesota Vikings, no real secret where they need defensive line, maybe offensive line as well. But I know Rick Spielman loves long athletes on the edge. He hasn't been exceptional this year, but there's no denying that he's a long athlete. Jason Owe from Penn State. I think the freakish tools, he's only kind of scratching the surface of what he's got.
I like that fit. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the kind of guys they have typically brought in. I think Jason Oweh certainly kind of fits the bill there. Dane, take us to number 21, Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, and I think I would have Oweh is the guy I was heavily considering here for Tampa Bay. So, kind of a pencil throw when you see that name come off the board. But I think this is a class with some pretty talented edge rushers in the back half of round one. And so with, Shaq Barrett's a pending free agent, Pierre Paul, is on the wrong side of 30, entering the final year of his deal next year. Let's add some more pass rush help for Tampa Bay. And I think I'm going to go with Joseph Osai from Texas, who just wind him up, let him go. The competitive motor, that equates to production. He's just a fun player to watch hunt the quarterback. So Osai to Tampa Bay, be part of that defense.
Well, Dane, I really screwed you here because I put you on the clock twice in a row for two different sets of picks. So you're up next here with the Miami Dolphins. They've already made a selection by selecting wide receiver Jamar Chase. So they've struck gold there in the top 10. Interested to see who you've got them taking here at 22 as I continue biding time for you as you ponder this selection.
Well, I appreciate that. You're a pro's pro. So like with Miami here, we saw them go, we had 3 first-round picks last year. And I think they're very happy with those 3 right off the bat. And they got their playmaker at the earlier first-round pick. I think in the back half now, let's go defense on the defensive side of the ball. And let's go with a guy who you mentioned earlier, Fran, Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. I think he's just a perfect fit for Brian Flores in that defense. Yep. Playing a lot of Sam, but he can do some different things. 6'3", 260 with movements like that. You just don't see it very often. So I don't know that he has like an immediate fit, next year as a rookie. But he's a guy that you're going to work into the mix, into the rotation, and then by 2022, he's your starter. So Zaven Collins, this guy's got Zach Wilson's the biggest riser this year. Zaven Collins is that guy on defense, and he's got a rocket ship on his back. Just a really fun player who checks the boxes for production, checks the boxes for tape, and checks the boxes for the traits. All 3 of those things are why he's a 22nd pick here.
I like it. I don't have many arguments there with your reasoning there for that selection. Let's go to the next one here. Ben, you're back up with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, excited for this one. One of my favorite rosters and coaching staffs in the NFL. Tons of playmakers. Seems like they're just one position away from being a contender for the next 10 years. As much as I wanted to give them an offensive lineman, maybe a Rashawn Slater or an Eichenberg or a Samuel Cosme, I love all those fits in Indy. They need that quarterback of the future for Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni. And I love Kyle Trask down there at Florida. I think he's a great fit for Frank Reich. And when I watched some of his 2019 tape, and I want to see how it reflected to his obviously incredible 2020, Fran, he reminded me a lot of Carson Wentz in 2017. And I see a lot of similarities in how he could kind of plug and play in that offense with some of the RPO stuff, his toughness to kind of extend plays subtly. It's just general toughness to like block defenders and end around plays and, certain aspects like that. I love his mental makeup, his size, every bit of 6'4", 235, and 40. And he can layer throws all over the defense. I think that's a great marriage between Frank Reich and Kyle Trask.
So it's 2 years in a row. The Colts are going to draft a slow-footed quarterback with Eason last year and Trask this year.
Yeah, Eason was more of the sideshow to throw over the moon. I think we have a real project piece here with Kyle Trask to be a quarterback and a face of the franchise for the next 10 years.
I can see that. Let's get to the next pick, and I've got back-to-back here picks here, guys. So at 24, I've got the Tennessee Titans, and there's no secret. I mean, really, it's been one of the most talked about position needs really in the NFL this year, and that's the Titans looking for help off the edge, looking for some source of pass rush. My guess is throughout the course of this offseason and free agency, through trades, whatever it is, they're going to find a guy that can help rush the passer. But it's going to help you if you can go and get a guy in the draft as well. And when I look at who is left, a lot of the big names are off the board, right? And so when I look at this, I'm like, all right, this now becomes a two-man race for me. One is an edge rusher, one is a non-edge rusher. The non-edge rusher is a guy that I feel that the Titans are going to get more info on really than anybody, and that's Ohio State cornerback Shaun Wade. He's got inside-out versatility, which Mike Vrabel's going to love. Remember, Kerry Coombs, who was the D-backs coach down in Tennessee, he's now the defensive coordinator back with the Buckeyes. Mike Vrabel, an Ohio State guy through and through, was on that staff. So I think when you look at that, you say, all right, they've got plenty of ties there. So that it might be a good thing for Shaun Wade, might be a bad thing for Shaun Wade. But I think when you look at the value there on the end of round one, that kind of makes sense. That being said, I'm going to go with the guy that just fits the bigger position of need right now for this Titans football team. They're a team that likes height, weight, speed guys. They definitely prefer bigger, more physical guys that can come off, set the edge, and get to the football. I'm going to go Boogie Basham here from Wake Forest. I think it fits the scheme. I think it fits the play personality of Mike Vrabel and that defensive staff. I'm going to go Boogie Basham here from Wake Forest. You guys got any qualms with that selection there?
No, I'm maybe I don't think it's too early for him. Especially when you talk about a team that needs front seven help. Is Basham going to give you the sack production that they need? Do you see him as that type of player, or is he more of your base end and a guy that's gonna, he's not going to hurt you against the run. He's just going to be a really solid starter for you.
He reminded me a lot of Rashawn Gary coming out 2 years ago. Very explosive, a lot of lower body stiffness. I don't think he's ever going to be able to really corner on high side rushes. But a guy that's going to be a good run defender and just a relentless player and chase plays all over the field. I'm hoping it's a young, explosive mix of Rashawn Gary with an effort and intensity of like a Brandon Graham.
Is a high floor player. And if you think about some of the issues they've had with Isaiah Wilson so far this year, maybe say, all right, we're going to go away from that. We'll go for a guy that we just feel really good about his ability to kind of step in and play right away and be a pro's pro. I kind of feel like certainly Basham is one of those guys down at Wake Forest. So I'm going to go with the next pick here, and I've got the New York Jets once again, 25th pick. They've got this selection from the Seattle Seahawks and the Jamal Adams trade. So I look at the Jets. Obviously, you take Trevor Lawrence first. This becomes a three-man race for me. Would you like a weapon to complement, to pair with Trevor Lawrence? They like production up there in New York with Joe Douglas. They prefer guys that produce at a high level. And all three of these guys produce at a high level for me. I'm going to continue to address the offense. I think you look at wide receiver Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, I think makes a lot of sense. I think when you look at, Joe Douglas, that's the kind of player I feel like he would be able to, that he would, like to pair with a Lawrence. You look at Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson, has done nothing but produce during his time at Clemson. And you like to, bring those two teammates, keep those guys together, keep the tag team together. I am going to go, though, with a position. I know Joe Douglas, they want to build up the trenches. They want to continue beefing up the offensive line. And Dane, I know you're going to be upset. I'm taking your boy. I'm taking Rashawn Slater, the offensive lineman from Northwestern. I think it makes a lot of sense here because the Jets, they're just trying to plug holes right now on this roster. You want to build up the trenches. Don't make the same mistake that others have had about not protecting the franchise quarterback in his first year, second year. You already got Mekhi Becton at left tackle. Whether Slater plugs in at right tackle or one of the guard spots, you've got a future starter. The versatility is there. He's a long-time starter. I know Joe Douglas will appreciate a guy like Rashawn Slater. I think that pick makes a lot of sense there for the New York Jets.
It's steal the draft so far, easily in my mind. I mean, that's a home run. And, yeah, he has right tackle experience at Northwestern. But, right now he's working out, also taking snaps at center.
Yep.
He's practicing doing reps at guard. So I think he does give you realistic versatility, and that's exactly what the Jets need on the offensive line. And drafting the quarterback first and then getting him some help with Becton already in the fold. Love that pick.
Is this going to be one of these years where 25 picks in, it's another deep offensive tackle class? It's really just the second offensive lineman off the board, and Slater might even be moving inside. Is this one of those years that group is so deep, everybody kind of passes on because there's so much value on day two?
Yeah, last year was the opposite, where we saw, 5 go in the top 20, which is rare, 5 tackles. This year, it could happen where we only have one tackle or one offensive lineman go in the top 15, 20 picks, and then we start to see that run. That wouldn't be surprising.
Or some really good tackles that are going to go to some Super Bowl playoff teams that are going to run those picks up to the counter if they see Samuel Cosmi or Eichenberg or Darisaw sitting there in the 30s. I think it's great value. But sitting here at Jacksonville Jaguars, I want more talent in the backfield. James Robinson's really been holding the ship this year, being an undrafted free agent. They have a couple things behind the scenes, Raquel Armstrong, but we need more threats in the backfield, not only to have speed and playmaking, running the ball, but in the pass game as well. I'm going to go right for Clemson running back Travis Etienne. And I think he has a great mix of being able to contribute in the pass game as well, in the screen game, maybe some angle routes and down the field. But he has inside, outside versatility as a runner. The production, getting into the end zone is obviously at an incredible rate with the University of Clemson. Just more players that are threatening. You need more good football players in this locker room, good people, good kids in that locker room. I think getting a Zach Wilson with the second pick and then turning around and getting a running back mate in that backfield is just adding more threats to the defense.
Mike, I know you guys are big fans of ETN, but do you think this is too early to take a running back? How do you see that pick?
ETN's he's different than any other of the running backs you're going to get in this class.
Wow.
I think as long as, since Journey Brown had to retire, there's no real true home run, true big play threat. Obviously we don't know what Jacksonville's going to run offensively, but if you're running an offense that's going to consistently get your running back out in space, I'm still going to say it's probably too early for us in terms of like the value, but I'm not going to hate if, like I said, if you're going to utilize them, kind of how Clemson's utilizing this year in the passing game and getting the ball in his hands. Like I said, there's not anyone else in this class that can replicate what he can do, in my opinion.
I like it. All right, well, let's go to back to the AFC East here. Dane, take us to the Buffalo Bills at 27.
Well, I think the easy part is I know where I'm going. I'm going the offensive line. You look at this Bills offensive line; they could use some help. Mitch Morse. You don't know what his long-term future is, dealing with concussions. Cody Ford has been okay, and he's on injured reserve right now. Feliciano, Darrell Williams, those guys are headed to free agency. So there's a lot of holes that might need to be filled this offseason. So now the hard question is, okay, which one am I going with? Ben alluded to just the offensive line depth at this point in the draft. I would have loved to have Slater there. That's not going to happen with him going off the board to the Jets. So, Wyatt Davis from Ohio State, certainly in play here. Christian Darisaw, who he's my number 3 tackle, but I think he'd be just a stud guard as well. So I think he has a little bit of versatility. I think I'm going to go Elijah Vera Tucker here, though, who is a versatile player, played guard, and he was a second-round guard based off last year's tape. This year at left tackle, he's just playing out of his mind. He's playing really well. I still think he's probably best inside at a guard position or one of the interior line positions. But I think what he's done this year shows he can kick out and play tackle if you need him to. So Elijah Vera Tucker here at 27, I'm feeling great about that value.
I love it. All right. Well, Mike, we have not heard from you now in 8 picks, and you've got 2 of the next 3. You're on the clock now with the Cleveland Browns.
All right. It's not going to be the sexiest picks, and I don't know if the newly minted analytics front office is going to love it, but I'm going to go linebacker here. I'm going to go Nick Bolton, Missouri. Not the best. Dylan Moses is a better athlete. I mean, Dylan Moses, like I said, would turn heads a little more, but I think Nick Bolton's just a rock solid linebacker. Can thump in the run game. I think he just sees the game a lot better at this point than a guy like Dylan Moses. I think he's a plug and play kind of guy from day one.
Interesting hopper linebackers out there in Cleveland with Jacob Phillips being a 3rd-round pick. Mac Wilson, I think, has some ability. Malcolm Smith, obviously the veteran. Sione Takitaki. A lot of bodies in there. Really have to figure out who's going to be those cornerstone pieces of the future.
I think Bolton is a stud. I feel like he's going to be a 3-down player once he gets to the NFL. He is a lot of fun to watch.
He's just going to fit in that AFC North too.
No
cold games, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore. It's going to be some great hits in December there.
Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he goes higher too, guys.
Oh yeah, and he's going to get killed when he steps up at the combine and the arm length is 31 inches or 30 and a half or whatever it ends up being, but. this guy just it's kind of like Slater. Just watch the tape and try not taking this guy somewhere in the top 25 picks. So yeah, I think in Cleveland, for their front office, I thought they did this a lot in last year's draft, where they made some surprising picks, maybe that were a little bit against the analytics, but they were just so surprised to see a Nick Harris fall as far as he did, or some of these other guys that they just said, okay, this is too good to pass up the value, so we're going to take them. And this could be one of those situations.
Yeah, they let the draft come to them for sure last year.
Harrison Bryant.
Yep, when they took Grant Delpit as well in the second round. I mean, I think that was a great example of that as well. Ben, you're on the clock here. 29, Green Bay Packers.
Going to break the trend of the Packers, finally putting a wide receiver in the first round. I think it's been 15 years or so since they took Javon Walker way back when, but it's about time we added some first round talent around Aaron Rodgers for a couple more years, depending on how long he's got left in green and gold. But just a matter of what receiver are we in the market for? Is it a big red zone guy like Terrace Marshall? I love Rashad Bateman, but I feel like he's too similar to Devontae Adams. We're looking for a complementary skill set. So I want one of these gadget guys. I think Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown are kind of day two guys. Thinking Kadarius Toney. But I'm going with Rondale Moore at the University of Purdue. Ran an official 4.33 coming out of high school. One of the most prolific run after catch yak producers in college football. Was only healthy for that 1 year, 2018, but was as prolific a season as any receiver we've seen. I know Jamar Chase and then Devontae Smith have put up pretty impressive seasons since, but Rondale Moore is that guy that's going to kind of plug into that former Randall Cobb role, that Packers offense, being a slot receiver, the jet motions, the end arounds, easy offense, get the ball in his hands, let him do the work. I think it's a great fit for Matt LaFleur's offense.
I'm just glad that you took him so that Mike didn't take him for the Chiefs next. Because if he did, I mean, that's just like, it's not even fair. I actually had Rashad Bateman penciled in. I thought as soon as you said, wide receiver, I'm like, he's going to take Rashad Bateman. But I
love him. And I just think his skill set is too much like Devontae Adams. I'm looking for a little bit more of a diverse kind of profile to counter.
I think your justification for that pick made a lot of sense for sure. Well, Mike, as I alluded to, you are up on the clock, sir, with the Kansas City Chiefs at 30.
Yeah, I'm seriously debating Kadarius Toney here just because that would be absurd. You can take that offense to the moon. But I do think a little more sound long-term investment here. Build up offensive line, get a guy who can start inside, be your tackle of the future. So I'll go Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech offensive tackle.
I like it.
I love that. Yeah, because I do think Darrisaw he's such an ass kicker as a guard. And then, kick him out at tackle. He's got the balance where he can hold up in space. So, I like that fit a lot.
I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of that position fit there. New Orleans on the clock, 31. We're almost out of the first round, guys. Ben, take us through the New Orleans Saints here.
I think this is one of the more interesting selections in the first round. Just a very veteran team. They're contenders, obviously. Can go a number of directions. They're aging in some spots coming up on you, particularly in the back end. But the position on the back end that I think is very inconsistent is that nickel spot. And I think an Elijah Molden out of the University of Washington is a much better player than some of his draft slots and kind of projections. He's the best nickel in the country. He's a great blitzer. He can erase all these slot receivers in man coverage. He's tough. And I think he would give every bit of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a run for his job, which I think the Saints are wearing a little bit thin with his play on the field. So I think Elijah Molden, whether it's the Saints or somebody else in the back end of round one here, I think is the best nickel corner in the class if you need one.
I like it. I think that he fits. Having watched a lot of the Saints over the last week or so, I think he certainly fits that play.
And Fran, we've seen a lot of different bodies in nickel there, whether it's P.J. Williams, Patrick Robinson, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I just think they need a little stability there. I think Elijah Molden would bring it.
I like that.
And to Mac Jones there, Ben.
I think there's a couple of Mac Jones style of quarterbacks they might be able to grab on day 2 or maybe even day 3.
Interesting.
That's the direction I went in my mock. I think even though he's so average physically, I think he'd be a great fit in that offense with his understanding of timing, his understanding of ball placement, his ability to work the pocket. I do really like that fit. I mean, I like him a lot more than not a lot more, but I like him better than Kyle Trask. But it's an interesting discussion with Mac Jones because the physical traits are so average, and he plays in a situation where it's so hard to remove him from all the elite supporting cast. But at some point, we just got to give him credit for making the reads, making the throws, and just executing. And that's what he does. And so he's not going to be a great fit for a lot of teams in the first round.
Not the six, certainly. He's slow and steady. I'm kind of thinking they might go for a little higher variance on day 3, maybe a Desmond Ridder or a Kellen Mond to try to, add a little bit more playmaking ability to that offense at the quarterback spot, outside of, Drew Brees, and trying to figure out who the next is, whether it's Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, or moving on to somebody else.
So, guys, I'm going to round out the first round here, and I'm going to be honest. I'm going back and forth here because there are a few guys I'm thinking of. I mean, when you look at who their free agents are, Andre Villanueva is the left tackle. He's hitting the free agent market. Chances are they're going to bring him back, but if not, could Liam Eichenberg be the pick here? Could Sam Cosmi be the pick here? They value versatility. Cosmi has proven to play both right tackle, left tackle. They took a Notre Dame player with their first pick last year, obviously. So I think when you look at Eichenberg, the pathway is there. I look at the cornerback position. I'm like, all right, Asante Samuel Jr. I think fits the way that they play on the back end. They like guys from football families as well. They've talked about that when they took Terrell Edmonds a couple years ago out of Virginia Tech. Samuel, obviously we know, comes from that football family. I think there are, there's linebackers that make sense. There's other guards that make sense. I've gone back and forth, but I think I'm going to go Sam Cosmi here because he's got the proven versatility. I don't know that I love him in the AFC North and for that style in terms of powerful people movers, but he's got the proven versatility. He's a guy that can play either left or right tackle, and I don't know that they've got it quite figured out at the right tackle spot necessarily moving forward. I'm going to go Sam Cosmi here as my pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers to round out round 1. So that being said, we've now rounded out first round, but as I said at the top, we're going to cover all 32 teams here for this mock draft. And the next group that did not have a first round pick, the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams, the Houston Texans. The Seattle Seahawks would have the first of those 3 picks, and they are in round 2, and I will take for the Seattle Seahawks. There are a few names here that I really kind of thought, all right, this kind of makes sense for this team. I think when you look, at what they like, they certainly have their prototypes across the board, but I think they still share that same kind of mentality. They love physical, violent players. They want guys that are going to compete. They want guys that are going to come in, that aren't afraid of taking other people's jobs. They've got that guy. They don't like guys that are former 5-star recruits, overcoming adversity. A lot of different trends that you can go with the Seattle Seahawks and Pete Carroll over the course of the last few years. They've got some free agents. They've got some aging players. I'm ultimately going to go with Trey Smith, the left guard for Tennessee. I think when you look at the way that they play, the way that they want to play up front, number one, Mike Iupati's our left guard right now. I think that Trey Smith certainly gives you what Mike Iupati gives you and more. And I think when you look at guys that have come off, shown that they can overcome adversity, guys that have that football character that they're looking for, he certainly was that former 5-star recruit. There were a couple other guys I was thinking, Najee Harris from Alabama, Justin Ross, I think from Tennessee, or from Clemson rather, certainly fits that. I think you look at Justin Ross with him with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I don't even want to think about that in the NFC. There are a lot of guys that I thought about, but Trey Smith from Tennessee is where I'm ultimately going to slide here for the Seattle Seahawks.
So I think it's SEC back-to-back years, getting a hulking guard for the Seahawks on day 2 with Damian Lewis last year, who's had a pretty solid rookie year. So upgrade on the offensive line, something that they haven't done nearly enough. So I like it.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Ben, let's go to the LA Rams. They're a team that obviously do not have a first-round pick because of the trade for Jalen Ramsey to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who's a player or two that you've got kind of earmarked for the LA Rams?
There's a couple guys. This team has some serious roster holes. They're going to have to spend some money in free agency to address some of these. But particularly on the offensive line, I think we need a left tackle of the future. We need to upgrade our guard spots. That could be Darisaw. That could be Leatherwood. Maybe even a Landon Dickerson. They could really upgrade the center or either guard spots. Just getting better body in that offensive line room. Maybe a Deontay Brown. Reminds me a little bit of Saffold, that kind of powerful guard that really played well for them in that Super Bowl year. But I was also looking for the quarterback of the defense. I mean, Micah Keisler was their starter for most of the year. I would love to see Chaz Surratt, if he was available in the second round, be that Mike linebacker for them for the next, decade. He just is a cerebral player. He's athletic, 3-down linebacker, tough, lateral range, can turn and run, great blitzer as well. So as much as I like Surratt there, look at this offensive line roster and depth and some serious concerns. I don't even think the draft is enough. They're going to have to take a couple guys in the draft and free agency to keep Jared Goff upright.
I like it. Well, Dane, round us out here. The Houston Texans do not have a first-round pick. They do not have a second-round pick. Who are some guys in round 3 that you think make sense to this team?
Yeah, there's going to be about 70 players off the board before the Texans get to pick here, and they've got a ton of needs. They could go interior offensive line, help out Deshaun Watson. They could use a running back. Maybe this is where we see. I mean, I think Najee Harris will be gone, but maybe one of those North Carolina running backs here, Javonte Williams or Michael Carter. Corner is also another need area. I think I'm going to go wide receiver though. Will Fuller, he's a pending free agent, also dealing with the suspension right now. Kenny Stills is gone. Brandon Cooks, there's no guaranteed money left on his deal. Let's give Deshaun Watson another weapon. I'm going to go Nico Collins from Michigan, who opted out this year. He's kind of in that N'Keal Harry mold, a guy that's a good-sized athlete, smooth routes, reliable hands. I think he would add a little bit of size to that offense, help out Watson at quarterback.
I like it.
The N'Keal Harry mold doesn't sound like.
Yeah, that's very fair. But in the third, we're talking third round. A big physical guy that's going to run fairly well. Just needs to be a little bit. He's not very sudden. I think that's the key with Nico Collins. He's not a sudden player. But I think in the third round, I think that's kind of where his value is.
I was kind of eyeing Tylan Wallace. I think Deshaun needs a best friend at receiver. He needs a reliable guy. A guy's going to catch everything for him, make the jump catches. Doesn't really need the playmaker over the top. He needs a best friend at receiver. I think Tylan Wallace will be right in that ballpark in the third round.
And of course, one of those other teams that have a new coaching staff, a new regime in the front office. So a lot of projection there with that selection as well. Well, guys, this has been fun. We covered all 32 teams. We covered 35 different selections. Really appreciate you guys all jumping on here for our first live mock draft of the 2020 football season, the 2021 NFL draft. We'll talk to all of you guys soon. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. We haven't really done that often on this podcast, but I thought that was kind of fun to be able to just kind of go pick by pick in a live situation with all 4 of these guys, and I'll go around and make our picks. As a quick refresher, real quick, for those of you that would like this, first overall, New York Jets. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, no surprise. Jacksonville Jaguars at number 2. Ben Fennell takes Zach Wilson from BYU. Not a huge shock there. There's going to be a lot of discussion about the quarterbacks there at the top of this draft. Number 3, Cincinnati Bengals, slam dunk, Oregon left tackle Penny Sewell. That pick was made by Mike. LA Chargers, I rounded out. First big surprise, I would say, of this draft, and that's Virginia Tech corner Caleb Farley. I gave my reasoning earlier in the show. Dallas Cowboys at number 5, Alabama cornerback Patrick Surtain Jr. Dane Brugler, obviously very familiar with the Dallas Cowboys. Number 6, Philadelphia Eagles take Penn State linebacker, the local kid, Michael Parsons from Mike Renner. 7th overall, Carolina taking quarterback Justin Fields from Ohio State. Like that pick from Ben there, and I actually wish I made this connection live. Matt Rule on the same coaching staff at Temple. I was there with Ryan Day. So, there's you further connect the dots there between Justin Fields going to the Carolina Panthers. Don't rule that out if he were to fall outside the top 5. Number 8 overall, the Atlanta Falcons taking edge rusher Kwity Paye from Michigan. 9 overall, the Miami Dolphins taking Jamar Chase. Love that value there for the Miami Dolphins. Good pick there by Dane. Denver Broncos rounding out the top 10 with South Carolina corner J.C. Horn. It really upset me because I was hoping that that Horn would fall a little bit later to one of my teams in the top 15. Washington football team taking wide receiver Devontae Smith, as I shocked the group there with the star receiver out of Alabama. Another star receiver out of Alabama going to number 12 to the Detroit Lions, Jalen Waddle. 13th overall, Chicago Bears taking quarterback Trey Lance from North Dakota State. 14, San Francisco 49ers taking pass rusher Greg Rousseau from Miami. That's who I was hoping J.C. Horn would fall to, but that great pick there by Ben allows me to take Greg Rousseau. Arizona Cardinals take tight end Kyle Pitts from Florida. New England Patriots at 16 take D.K. Kendrick, the talented corner from Clemson University. And then we've got the Baltimore Ravens at 17. Mike Renner have them taking TCU free safety Trayvon Moehrig. Las Vegas Raiders at 18, taking Notre Dame linebacker, safety, Jeremiah Owusu-Koromoah, versatile playmaker on the back seven of that Las Vegas defense. 19 overall, the New York Giants taking corner Tyson Campbell from Georgia. Minnesota Vikings at 20, taking Penn State pass rusher Jason Oweh. So 2 Penn State defenders in the top 20 of this draft. 21 overall, the Tampa Bay Bucks selecting pass rusher Joseph Osai from Texas. 22, Miami Dolphins, Dane taking Tulsa linebacker Zaven Collins. Love that scheme fit there for Zaven Collins in Miami. 23 overall, the Indianapolis Colts taking the 5th quarterback of the first round, and that's Kyle Trask out of Florida. Tennessee, number 24, taking Boogie Basham, the pass rusher from Wake Forest. 25th overall, the New York Jets. I had them taking Northwestern's tackle Rashawn Slater. I think he could fit in a number of different spots along the O-line. Jacksonville Jaguars at 26, taking Travis Etienne. 27, the Buffalo Bills taking USC's Elijah Vera Tucker. 28, Cleveland taking linebacker Nick Bolton. Green Bay at 29, taking the wide receiver Rondale Moore, giving more speed to that offense. Kansas City Chiefs taking offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw from the Virginia Tech Hokies. 31st overall, the New Orleans Saints. Ben's got them taking Elijah Molden. I like that fit as well down there with the Saints. That's the corner from Washington. The Pittsburgh Steelers round out the first round with Sam Cosmi, the tackle from Texas. 3 picks outside the first round. I liked Trey Smith there with Tennessee to Seattle. The LA Rams, Ben highlighted a few names, but certainly focusing in on the offensive line there. And then Houston Texans rounding it out, wide receiver Nico Collins from Michigan. Dane liked there to the Houston Texans. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's edition of the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. This was a fun episode to do. As always, if you like this, go on to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. Leave us a rating. Leave us a comment. It's the best way to throw us your support as the college football season wages on. We'll be back a little bit later this week with a normal episode. Later in the week, myself, Ben Fennell, Ross Tucker, and a special guest. We'll see you next week, or later this week, right here on the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA.